Welcome to another edition of 805 Sports Talk. This is our 40th episode of the show, but our first of 2017. So thank you guys for tuning in. One of the bigger stories of the entire winter season so far has been the play of the Santa Maria High School boys soccer team. We saw Tuesday night with another convincing Los Padres League win over Orchid Academy. Correspondent Brian Stanley had a chance to see the Saints in action and caught up with some of the players and coaches after that win.
Continuing their winning ways under head coach Eduardo Cuna, the Santa Maria Saints boys soccer team credit hard work to the group's success.
And for me, that's been the key to success. It's just hard work, and constant repetition of plays over and over.
In his third season as head coach, Cuna has coached the Saints into the CIF Southern Section playoffs the past 2 seasons, including a SoCal regional berth last year, running a balanced attack game plan.
We keep it balanced. Everybody makes their runs. Everybody gets a chance to take a shot on goal. So if anything, we spread the ball and we share the ball all the time.
With the team spreading the ball around for scoring opportunities, senior forward George Carmona says the squad's success is a group effort.
It's everybody scores, like goals come from defense, midfielders, and strikers, It's everywhere.
Carmona also credits the Saints' achievements on the field to Cuna's coaching style and game plan preparation.
At practice and stuff, he always brings different drills and stuff that help us a lot. He always trying new things and stuff. Yeah, he studies a lot too.
To prevent the team from becoming complacent in game preparation, Cuna continually adds plays to the formation to keep the players engaged.
Once again, there's no secret to that. I mean, we hit the books, of course, but at the same time, we want to keep them hungry, so we switch it up on them. I got 25 different books on the formation that we run, so we just try and implement little things here and there and switch it up.
With many of the Saints playing for the same club soccer team, Cuna sees that as a big factor in the camaraderie, communication, and fluidity that Santa Maria has on the field.
That's part of our success. There's 7-8 players that play together on the club team right now at the premier level, and premier level is the highest level that you can play out there with club. So yeah, they know each other pretty well. They know what they bring to the table, each and every one of them. So yeah, one of them goes down, the other one steps in for them, and it's just, we're lucky that we have this mesh of players that have been playing together for the longest time now.
Senior midfielder Saul Ayuso has been playing with or against his teammates since youth, which he feels plays a key role in the strengthening the bond of the team.
We're close outside the field too. We talk to each other all the time, and then in practice, we have fun. We just we practice hard but fun also, and I think that's what makes our team better and together.
Cuna says Ayuso plays an important role at midfield for the Saints, creating big plays on both sides of the ball and setting up scoring opportunities.
Saul, he's I would say the best playmaker here in the Central Coast right now. Who wouldn't want a lefty like him playing in the midfield? He sets you up perfectly. He's your balance between defense and offense, and it's just hard to take the ball away from him.
Having played under Cuna on the club team, the Crusaders, Cremona is a leader on the team and a resource in Cuna's coaching strategy.
We took a state cup champions 3 years ago. So he knows pretty well what I expect out of him, and if anything, he helps me put on check the rest of the team, because he knows what I'm asking for. He knows what I'm all about. So if anything, that makes it easier for me to run practices and during games. He pushes the rest of his teammates.
With the Saints eyeing another CIF Southern Section playoff run, Coach Cuna makes sure the team doesn't get too far ahead of itself.
Like I tell them, though, we got to take a game at a time, one game at a time, and of course that's our objective. But right now we're not gonna get too crazy about it. We want to peak when we get to CIF, and hopefully that'll happen for us.
For 805 Sports Talk, Brian Stanley reporting.
So the Saints will look to defend their Los Padres League boys soccer championship throughout the rest of the early season. Meanwhile, Righetti girls basketball team is attempting to defend its Pac-8 League championship. Righetti captured a share of the Pac-8 League title in 2016, splitting it with Mission Prep. and the Warriors began league play with an impressive performance Tuesday night. If you were lucky enough to watch myself and Lorenzo call the action from Warrior Gym, you saw Righetti jump out to a 16-0 lead against Arroyo Grande and cruise to a 60-43 win at home. Righetti moved to 9-3 on the year, dropping Arroyo Grande to 6-5. Righetti senior Danita Astorga, who hit that 3, had a productive night with 19 points. The Eagles did cut into the Warriors' lead, taking it down to 9 a couple times, but Righetti was able to respond and was never really pressured. The Righetti defense was solid, forcing a number of turnovers with the full court press and mostly man defense, not allowing the Eagles to score for nearly the entire first quarter. It was 16-7 after the first. Danita Astorga also led the break, hitting teammate Deja Ramirez for 2 points here. Arroyo Grande finally turned up its tempo a bit on offense and was able to break the Righetti press and find some scoring rhythm. But Zane Sheckard hit some big shots for the Warriors, finishing with 9 points. Maya Armenta was great at point for Righetti, controlling the tempo of the game and hitting a shot or two for the Warriors. 3 AG players hit double figures. Bryn Toming had 12, AJ Bertelson finished with 11, and JC Bain added 10. Toming, the senior, sank a big 3 at the halftime buzzer for AG, cutting the Righetti lead to 34-21 at the break. But it seemed every time AG hit a big shot, the Warriors responded. Astorga knocked down another big 3. So that was pretty much the story of the night. Righetti jumped out to a big lead. AG cut into it a little bit, but was never really able to close that gap less than 9. We saw a couple times it was right there. It wasn't a blowout by any means, but Righetti certainly was in control. Lorenzo, what did you take away from Righetti's performance Tuesday night?
I came away pretty impressed. They have definitely the look of a team that's primed for a Pac-8 run. Obviously Danita Astorga is going to be one of the more unguardable players that teams will have to prepare for. But I was really impressed by the bench play that Desiree Dominguez, the head coach, has. Just right away they were hitting some three-point shots. They were also bringing some energy from the transition point of things. But, overall, Righetti was as good as advertised.
Yeah, so we saw some boys soccer action, girls basketball action. Now, Kenny, you saw some good LPL girls soccer action between San Ynez and Nipomo Tuesday night. Can you kind of break us down what happened there?
Santa Ynez was really in control of things in the first half, the ball possession, but as sometimes happens in soccer, it wasn't reflected on the scoreboard. They only got 1 goal. That came back to hurt San Ynez. Nipomo scored twice in the last 5 minutes to win. These teams tied for the league championship last year. I think they'll both be right there in the hunt this year. San Ynez, when it has its offense flowing, looks very smooth and fast, but the Pirates just need to knock some more shots in. That's been a problem for them at times this year. Nipomo, I was impressed with their pluck. I thought they were thoroughly outplayed in the first half, but the second half, especially the last 20 minutes, Nipomo really took it to San Ynez on the attack, and I thought, a well-deserved win. It was making most of the scoring opportunities. I think the usual suspects will be the ones in the hunt again this year. That would be San Ynez, Nipomo, and Cabrillo. And I do think Lompoc and Cabrillo will be legitimate dark horses this year.
Yeah, you had a great game last night, Kenny, with Nipomo coming back late. Those two teams played some contentious games last year, and they started off with a big game early on in 2017. Now, Elliot, we missed you for a couple weeks before the new year. You're back here, hopefully at full health. Getting adjusted to 2017. What do you think of the new year so far? In the sports world with 2017 coming on.
Well, for us, it's always a monumental task to survive the holiday tournament season. So many teams are playing in so many places. So now we settle down though to league season. It's all about the leagues and then pointing ahead toward the playoffs. And I'm excited about the league season. It's always so much fun. The boys and girls basketball, boys and girls soccer. Righetti girls look like they're going to have another great season. The Los Padres League should be really competitive in basketball. Soccer is going to be good. And we can't forget that although it is winter, we have girls water polo, and most of the teams play outdoors. You got a couple indoor. Lompoc and Cabrillo play, of course, indoors at the Lompoc Aquatic Center, and it's boys and girls wrestling. We're going big on wrestling this week. We'll get our first real good look at the new year in high school wrestling, and that's always competitive. And we had one young lady won a championship at the state tournament not too long ago over the holidays. So we know we've got the talent out there. Pioneer Valley girls always put forth a good team. Righetti, and there's more and more teams joining on the girls' side in wrestling. So that's for a couple of years there it was like Pioneer Valley and Righetti had it all to themselves. But we're going to see more and more competitive wrestling, more matches because of it, more things for us to cover for you. So I'm just looking forward to the leagues where now every game counts. It's preseason, the tune-ups, where you test yourself against other teams and you see where your shortcomings are. Well, that's over now. That's, in some ways, those games count in your record and then can count in what the CIF Southern Section does in the playoffs and seeding for the playoffs and even admitting you to the playoffs. But if you win a league championship, you'll get into the playoffs. If you're second place, you should get into the playoffs. So now every one of these games counts, which means the intensity goes up. And we saw that last night in our first broadcast. And it is not by any chance, any stretch of the imagination, our last broadcast. We've got several more every week, and including a doubleheader next week, as we count down towards the league championships, and then we'll see it all reset for the playoffs. But this is the time when the games are the most fun. They'll get into the CIF playoffs, and it'll be a local team versus who knows. But now it's Santa Maria versus Orchid Academy, and Righetti versus St. Joe, and these games all count much more than they have up to this point. So the intensity level's going up, and I'm expecting nothing but, for us, a lot of fun. Somebody's going to lose each of these games. Soccer, they can end in ties still, but even so, the teams that don't win, that doesn't mean they're not any good or they're not trying. There's a lot of talent out there, and we get to see it up close and bring all those results to everybody at home. So I'm just looking forward to the league play, and even the little Coast Valley League. With they play 8-man in football, but they play 5-man or 5-girl basketball, and that's pretty competitive. And Valley Christian will be in the mix in their league. So it's just so many schools, and it's a lot of fun for us and a lot of work, but it's what we do and what we love. So bring them on.
Yeah, and that was Alexis Garcia from Nipomo who won a tournament down south, so congrats to her. We'd be
Queen of the Hill
if we didn't mention her win at the Queen of the Hill tournament. That's a big deal.
Hasn't lost yet this year.
Yeah,
13-0, I believe.
She's been great. So yeah, we have some wrestling coverage planned for Wednesday night. So if you want to check that out, Thursday morning in the newspaper, Cabrillo and Lompoc face off. Righetti, Santa Maria, or Righetti and St. Joseph and Paso Robles have a meet. So a lot of good wrestling coverage. There's also going to be some rainouts probably later in the week. So if you want to stay up to date on that, be sure to check out our newspaper in the morning every weekday. But Lorenzo, you're our Lompoc Valley guy. You did a great job covering Righetti. Tuesday night. That's not really your beat, but you did a really good job breaking down that game, calling that game. But I know you're always following the Lompoc Valley stuff, really closely. There were some big games Tuesday night. How did the Lompoc Valley teams fare Tuesday night?
You know what? We got to really keep a close eye on Lompoc girls basketball, because I'm just telling you, Lompoc Cabrillo, which is going to be our next broadcast. I mean, the girls' side of things, they're already not only at the top of the LPL, but they might be 4-0 coming into that game. So, I mean, there's already going to be an increased magnitude right there. And, I mean, as far as the boys' side is concerned, I mean, it looks like Cabrillo hasn't missed a beat with Gary West gone. CJ Simmons has his guys playing very high tempo on the offensive end, and they're still very, very detail-oriented and also very competitive on the defensive side of things. So the only blemish right now is I don't know what really is going on with Lompoc boys basketball. I mean, yeah, Elliot Davis kind of hinted that this was going to be a transition year. He lost a pretty heavy senior lineup from a year ago, but 2-13, I don't think Davis really expected like this kind of result. And you still got Cabrillo looming. You got Santa Maria, which has really improved under David Yamati, and Morro Bay. Even though Morro Bay lost by 22 last night against a very stout Cabrillo team, I mean, Morro Bay is looking like one of those fast rising programs in the LPL. So, I mean, I don't really know what's going on over inside that Lompoc High gym, but it sounds like that there's going to be some fine-tuning that Davis will probably have to deal with over there.
Yeah, I would expect the game Tuesday night between Lompoc and Cabrillo to still be, probably contentious and tight for at least the first half. As we know, I'm sure you're aware, anything goes when those two teams play. But on the girls' basketball side, what do you think about that matchup? How do you think it's going to break down? What are going to be some key points for both teams, Lompoc Cabrillo girls basketball?
I'm going to be real curious to see like what Claudia Terrones is going to throw at Erin Jenkins, because, I mean, just whenever I look at the stats sheets, I mean, one of the things that always pops out is just how dominant Jenkins is, and not only that, how consistent she is in getting double-doubles. Now, probably she's going to put in Sienna Garrett, maybe the other Garrett twin, Siobhan, try to slow her momentum. I wouldn't doubt that Shaimar Merlejo is also going to be in the mix to try to slow down Erin Jenkins, but that's going to be one of the key matchups I'm going to be looking forward to once we cover this game.
Yeah, and so we do have the doubleheader scheduled for Tuesday night. That's the 10th of January. The girls' game is at 5. Boys' game follows at 6:30. We'll have a live broadcast start at about 4:45 Tuesday night, so be sure to tune in for that one. We love talking about our local sports here, but we also love following the national storylines. And this past weekend may have been, the New Year's Day weekend is probably the biggest college football weekend. There's some great games, but I think most of us, being in California, paid attention to the Rose Bowl. Mm-hmm. With USC in there playing Penn State, that's a marquee matchup. Two blue bloods going against each other. Starting with you, Kenny, what did you think about that matchup in the Rose Bowl? Did you follow it closely? What did you think about USC coming back there? It was one of the most memorable Rose Bowls that I've ever seen. How'd you feel about watching a classic like that?
Yes, I thought when Penn State got something like 5 scores in about 2 minutes in the 2 or 3 minutes in the third quarter, I thought SC was done. But the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, when they actually got a stop on Penn State, I thought USC had a shot. I thought at last, after about, they had not had an answer for Penn State's offense ever since Penn State's second drive. But then they've actually got a stop, and I thought Penn State's defense has looked pretty shaky against USC's offense. USC does have a shot. And sure enough, they pulled it out. And all the more impressive, fourth quarter, the announcers had been talking about, the fourth quarter, it's been Penn State's quarter this year. And USC beat them 17-0 in the fourth quarter. Actually, the player I was most impressed with at the end, everybody probably was USC's field goal kicker. He's not exactly a savvy vet. He's a young man. He'd gone 2 for 4, missed 2 fairly long tries. Didn't exactly have a chip shot to win the game, and he knocked it pretty close, I believe, down dead center down the uprights. So very impressive there. I'm not typically a USC fan, but of course, it being a Cali team against a Big 12 team, I was rooting for USC, so I was very happy with the outcome.
Yeah, especially with the California team playing. It was a little weird with it being on January 2nd. We're used to having that on New Year's Day. But it was a great game for USC early on. Then Penn State kind of gained control, and we're mostly a USC family. We like USC, and we were kind of worrying a little bit there when Penn State made a late charge. But USC found a way. Sam Darnold was great, 5 touchdown passes. Mm-hmm. He's just a redshirt freshman, San Clemente High. He was amazing. Elliot, you were working that day, but I'm sure you were following it along. Hopefully it finishes on deadline, doesn't go too far into OT. How do you feel about
you're
that?
watching both clocks, the countdown to the end of the game and the count up to deadline, and going, oh, please
Yeah, we
finish
just got
so
to
that we
enjoy
can
it
get
and
this on
watch it.
paper.
You had to.
But I like both of these schools. I like, of course, we're a California newspaper, so I like all the UCLA, USC, Stanford, Cal, all those, Fresno States, anybody we can put in the spotlight. But I also like Penn State a lot, too. I almost went there before settling on Temple in Philadelphia. And it was great for last year for Temple to finally beat Penn State. But this game showed that both of these teams have come so far back. And this game was so much better than those two duds that were the national championship semifinals. I mean, they were both blowouts. They were just like embarrassments for the losers, Ohio State and Washington. And USC beat Washington. Now, USC stunk out the joint to begin the year. And then Coach Helton decided that maybe we'll give this kid, Sam Darnold, a shot. And he came through. Everybody, Josh Rosen over at UCLA got injured. And last year it was all Rosen, a real freshman, a true freshman, leading the team to glory. And then he gets hurt this year. Darnold shows up, and it's like, where'd this kid come from? Why did it take him so long to say, let's give him a shot? But they've been unbeatable since then, and those first 3 games, I guess, or the 3 early losses, worked against them in that national championship series. But I think they're a better team than either of those 2 losers. It was the most entertaining bowl game. We had kids like Christian McCaffrey sat out the Stanford bowl game because the bowl game means nothing, and why should he risk injury and go? And we've seen it happen where kids are first-round draft choices, they injure a knee or something, and then they fall in the draft, and every place you fall costs you money, and falling out of the first round costs you millions. And I can see, because these games are meaningless towards a national championship, where more and more of these kids are going to get the idea, I've shown my stuff during the regular season. I've helped the team get to the bowl. I'm not going to risk a knee in the bowl game when I've got $1 million future ahead of me if I'm not injured. So I think we're going to see more and more of that. And we saw it beginning this year with several stars not wanting to play. But in this USC-Penn State game, they were all there. They came to play. And I thought that USC was toast. I mean, I had the game on. And I'm working away, and I hear the cheers and yelling, and I keep looking, and Penn State's just killing them. Then all of a sudden, Darnold starts bringing them back, and at the very least, they would go to overtime tied and have a chance to win it. And then this kid hits the long field goal, kid that had blown 2. The coach still has confidence in him and says, we'll give it a shot. And they win it at the buzzer with zeros on the clock. Everybody went crazy except the people in State College, Pennsylvania. But it was the most exciting of all the games. 1-point victory at the 3-point victory with a field goal at the end. A nail biter, whichever side you were on. The TV ratings showed it. It got great TV ratings. So that was a great game. And the national semifinals were just duds. I'm looking for more out of Alabama and Clemson when they meet. Clemson gave them a good shot last year. A lot of the same kids are back. But I don't know how you guys felt about it, but those semifinals were just atrocious.
Yeah, I didn't think the Washington-Alabama game was that bad. They kind of pulled away. A couple key plays here and there kind of really doomed in Washington. But Lorenzo, no one follows college football recruiting in this area as closely as you do. So I'm sure you had some thoughts on that USC Penn State matchup, maybe some of those semifinals. How was your college football weekend?
Let me just say this. I mean, all these people who felt that Ohio State deserved to be in the college football playoffs needed to do the following. Pour baby powder on your dominant hand and slap yourself, all right? It's a knock on Penn State, especially the heart and effort that Penn State had, and the fact that Penn State beat Ohio State, and then USC knocking off Washington and showing that it definitely did belong in the Rose Bowl now. One of the great things that I loved about the USC-Penn State game, arguably their biggest Swiss Army knife, their most versatile player, Adoree Jackson, going down with the injury. Normally we see teams just get deflated, just get defeated and think, oh, we don't have any more options left. Well, I mean, USC really picked themselves up after that injury. I mean, Darnold, also Roland Jones as well, Rojo, and paying tribute to Joe McKnight, which I also thought was a really cool moment in that game. But, I once thought that the 2006 Rose Bowl between USC and Texas was going to be like the game that will just be etched in memory as the greatest Rose Bowl ever. I think this one replaced that.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the best college football games I've ever seen on any stage, any bowl game. So that was great. We still got one more college football game, so we'll talk about that next week. So in the coming week, we got our newspapers coming out pretty much every day. We got our webcast next Tuesday night from Lompoc High School. We got the next week's show, so we're pumping out a lot of content for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in for this week's 805 Sports Talk, and be sure to tune in for our webcast next week.